Is it even possible to do layoffs with compassion? Hello, and welcome back to our Cultures of Wellbeing video series. This edition is a bit different from our other videos because it's in direct response to what we heard from all of you. Today, we're going to talk about compassionate layoffs and all the things that you and your team can be doing, or quite frankly, not doing, to make sure that your layoff process is as compassionate as possible. And even saying those words out loud feels like a contradiction because what we hear so frequently, especially in the nonprofit sector, is that organizations that are doing layoffs are doing it so callously and without care or intention. And that is why we are dedicating this edition of Cultures of Wellbeing to how you can lead with care in uncertain times and make sure that your layoff process is as compassionate as possible. Now, we're not going to give you the context as to why layoffs are happening. We're sure that many of you understand why. Simply put, there have been many changes in our socio-political and economic landscape that unfortunately are forcing organizations to have to let people go. So let's focus today's video on the 5 things that you and your organization can do if you're facing layoffs or if you think you might have to face them soon. The first thing you can do is create a thoughtful communication plan. Communication is key, and we know that the biggest tension with layoffs is that leaders want to be transparent while also avoiding any legal trouble. Now, we are not legal experts. We cannot give you advice on employment law, but what we can say with the utmost confidence is that the important and number one thing that you can do for your staff during layoffs is to keep things honest, keep things transparent, and keep things timely. When it comes to transparency, we want to quote one of our favorite leadership experts, Simon Sinek. Transparency doesn't mean sharing every detail. Transparency means providing the context for the decisions we make. So as you develop a communication plan, please make the best possible effort to create caring and contextual conditions for delivering difficult news. Context matters and transparency is important. Number 2 is to create the right space to communicate. At the end of the day, nobody wants to hear bad news. But people will receive the news differently. So let's not assume that there's only one right way to deliver a hard message. The recommendation here is to meet with people eye to eye, whether it's in person or at the very least on camera. Sure, it's a lot easier to send an email or to just shuffle people off to HR, but the compassionate and courageous thing to do is to actually sit with people who are receiving tough news about job loss. You can do this in a group setting, you can do this one-on-one. We'll leave it up to you to decide what might work better. But what is also important to remember is that whatever setting you communicate a layoff in, please be ready to answer some tough questions. There will be questions that are beyond your capacity, and you don't have to know all of the answers, but you do need to do your homework so you can be ready to speak from a place of knowledge and trust and have resources ready to follow up on the questions that you don't have an answer to. Number 3, this is an obvious one, but we'll say it just for the sake of clarity. Please care for the people who are departing. It is easy to default on the idea that because people have to leave in order to sustain the organization, they should just be treated as expendable assets. That makes sense on paper, but let's remember that people are not paper. Nobody wants to hear that they're being cut to save the organization. What people need to hear are things that lift them up without crushing their self-worth. To the best of your ability, lift up the people who are leaving. We share a few examples in our blog on how to do that, but the 2 that I appreciate the most is to create a list of the person's contributions that had a positive impact on the organization and share it with them. And also consider giving someone a promotion, even if it comes without a pay increase. A title can carry meaningful weight for someone transitioning back to the job hunt. Number 4, this one's a little bit less obvious, but let's remember to support the people who are staying. Like I just mentioned, a lot of attention is understandably focused on the people who are leaving, but the people who stay are significantly impacted as well. They may be experiencing grief over losing colleagues they cared about or some type of professional form of survivor's guilt. On top of this, people who were staying are likely going to take on the work of folks who are leaving. And if this redistribution of work is not planned for or communicated clearly, it can quickly escalate into resentment and conflict. So if resources allow, please consider investing in support for the remaining staff, just as you would for those that are departing. That might look like hiring coaches or investing in some type of strategic planning to support people who are moving forward without their colleagues. And our 5th and final tip is to take care of yourself. If your organization is facing a layoff, there's a chance that you might be among those who are staying, which means you could be responsible for delivering news to others. If you're in that position, you might become the face of blame. And while you can't control how people perceive you, You can control how you show up and how you take care of yourself during one of the hardest things that any leader has to do. So, as you go through your layoff plan, be sure to include yourself and your needs in the planning. You might consider working with a coach or just leaning into peers to start practicing the things that you need to say. There are also some caveats that we want you to know if you are the person who is communicating layoffs. First, be careful to not deflect blame. And second, do not hijack others' emotional experiences with your own. You have to balance being there for others as you go through this process while also staying accountable to your own needs and values. So if you know that you might become the scapegoat in this layoff season, be sure that you have what you need to endure it. Look, there is no perfect way to go through layoffs, but there are definitely ways to make sure it's led with compassion. If you want to learn more about our tips for compassionate layoffs, or if you just need some support in this endeavor, then reach out to us, send us a DM, or just check out our website and our Cultures of Wellbeing blog.